And then with that intake, sits quite proud of the head too, and it appears to be quite large. So I think it'll seat really, really good in that. And that's how much the guide is wore. So we'll put 2 new guides in there and then set them seats right, and put these 2 new valves and a spring. And speaking of springs, as I was scraping the paint off this engine, I noticed something. I'll show it to you. Get the pencil, write this down in that blank page in your book there. Type M International. The way that throttle plate, that's a throttle plate in there. That's not a choke. It's a throttle. This is the throttle system. The hole don't go all the way through to the back. It's a shaft that goes into the housing on the back, preferably most of the time factory brass, that goes across through yonder with that flapper on in there. Okay, when the governor works back there on the back of the engine, it'll push this up like this. The engine starts with that governor full open, and then as the weight flies out, it closes it up to the speed you want it to operate at. And the part to pencil in on that blank page is when that rod comes up there and closes that valve, okay, the engine theoretically should stop running at that point. So you would have to adjust it where it actually gets a little bit of air. Usually 10 times out of 10, these engines are wore, and you can close that completely off and they still run because you get enough air around the edges of it. Now that I've been talking about running off at the mouth, have you seen anything that should be noted in that blank page written on it? If you noticed, this took a little bit of, it took some poundage to close that. It's too hard to close out here on the part that actually closes it. The reasoning being that it's hard to close is this governor system is adjusted in the hole in the back of the, if you have one of these engines, did you know it had 2 or 3 holes in there? I'll point it out to you with a screwdriver. In the back of that, they're pot metal on the factory one, some kind of, it's not good metal, but they have some holes in there. Most of them has 2. You'll find them with more, maybe even operator drill, maybe, but they have 2 holes. Well, and the spring is wound that way, so when you pull it up, it's in this hole up here. So that means it's going to be stronger. You have to push it more to get it to up to close. And they have a predetermined stop and start over here with a pin to give it operating range. Spring's in good condition. Looks like a new one. I may have even put that spring on there. It's in the wrong hole regardless. If you look at it in the back and get the light just right, you can actually put it in the correct hole. Now, look at that. That's a smooth operating. Only thing should point out is the shaft is molded into this thing right here. The shaft that goes through there is, this one's pretty tight. Most time that hole is worn out in there, and you would need to put a bushing in it and then refit that to it, to the point that it would get so much air in there that the governor couldn't work. And I'll show you something. Y'all see this piston here? That's a piston out of that's a new old stock piston right there with the rings, the way it come from the factory, wrapped up in some grease and a paper. Brand spanking new, never used. The reason I make a point of that is, seems to be quite important to the side play on a piston and the side play on the ring this way, side play. Not how big it is on the side. So out of curiosity, I was playing with this piston over here, Martin's engine, and I'm pretty sure that this was a new set of rings on this engine. I think this is the normal ring set that you would get if you ordered it off the internet, cast iron. This set of rings has been in this engine and run, the engine has been ran 3 or 4 short periods of time. But we'll look at that side play with a feeler gauge. I go in and leave it in a comment down there about what you think the measurement's going to be. But that's just your common old leaf type feeler gauge setup. And I've got out there that's 0.0015, meaning that's 1.5 thousandths thick. Basic. And it's clean. It's clean to the finger. And so what I'm going to do on this new piston from the factory, never been used, we'll check that side play. Okay. The measurement is, make a note in your book there, what distance the side plate on a new McCormick-Deering or International Type M engine is. So what I'm doing is that's 1.5 thousandths. I'm pushing the ring out where there's a gap, and I let the ring go back, capturing the feeler gauge. If I push that ring in, the feeler gauge will hardly come out to the point see, it's so tight that in that position I couldn't even get it out. Okay, all of them is kind of on a new old stock piston. The side play measurements, quote me on this if you want to, is less than 1.5 thousandths. I'd say it's 1 thousandths because it captures this in there. Now, Did you leave a comment what you think the gap would be on this used piston? Just for a benchmark, I'm going to try 10 thousandths, 0.010. Let's see what the side play on this is. Okay, that's pretty tight. That 10 thousandths was. Okay, now I have selected a 9 thousandths, 0.009. And if I come up here with that feeler gauge, okay, on that bottom ring, about middle ways of the ring, it's pretty tight on 9 thousandths. The next one is really tight on 9 thousandths. I'm gonna move around. It's tight on that. Okay. Yeah, you know, just up to now, the side plate on the rings on this used piston, and I don't know how much the engine has been run, is it looks good. Is 9 thousandths. Well, should make a note over there. Is as we talking about this engine, is I'll show you some. That's one of them exhaust rocker arm springs. That's one of them for 3 horsepower, a brand spanking new one. I should start a list for this engine. And like I say, we got that rocker arm spring. And if you was to order on the internet too, this is what you'd get: a 3 horsepower exhaust spring. And that's a 3 horsepower. They're as much identical as you can get. There's a little bit of spring, a little. I done had the micrometer true. They come from different places, and the water size is a little bit different. You know you can, if you look at them, they're pretty close. But we'll put us a new exhaust valve spring on that head there. So, and I have another one in queue over there. So exhaust valve springs cost, this spring costed $15.52. That's today's prices. Just saying. Well, there was a question about that O-ring. I done got it in the engine there. You know, I think it's where did I source them O-rings at? And you know, they listed here on the internet. But actually, the ones I use, I feel are more industrial, from McMaster Car. They have a selection you can choose from different materials. Just look them up.